The majority of AI experts and gurus are over-complexifying entertainers. They'll shock and awe, and they'll wow you with all their cool, parlor tricks. But then you go home and you go back to your business and you go, okay, well, what can I actually practically implement and leverage right now? And there's pretty much always nothing. And that was consistent. So is the understanding of that going on, and then just the state of overwhelm that a lot of people are still stuck in. They don't know where to get started. It's instantly gap inducing. Most attempts at trying to bring AI within your business, it's like, where do I start is too much.
Tom Lambotte, thanks so much for joining me today on RevOps Champions.
Thank you for having me, Brendon.
How are you doing?
I'm doing outstanding. Just got back from Strategic Coach last night in Toronto. So I'm always on the high, the clear, the focus, the momentum. I'm doing really good.
I get it. I had that last week when I returned from Chicago. It's always so inspiring, and gives you the energy for the next 90 days to really be bigger and better and move things along with more clarity, right?
It's amazing how much can get done in a 190-day world when you're focused and clear, and a few less is more is my mantra, and when you can really pinpoint the few levers and say no to all the things that pop up, the amount of progress and momentum you can build is it's fun.
In fact, so I think well, you and many other people that are sort of at the forefront of the sort of guiding businesses in the AI space are talking about just also getting back to the basics, to your point of like keeping things simple. So I've started using sticky notes again that I'm sticking on my computer, and one of them is, how can AI help me do this better? And the other one, which was what I learned last week, which I'm really focusing on, was, to your point of how to say no, is asking yourself, is this essential or just important? Because I think, so that's, for me, it's a really interesting lens for saying no and prioritizing based on the fact that it's something that is either essential to my goals, or if it's just important, then it can wait, right? So cool. Tom, I'm going to dive right in and ask you this question, which is, what inspired your 10 AI mindsets, and how do they reshape AI adoption in just business operations in general?
I am a simplifier, so it's not 10. It's only 8 right there. I simplified it. No, so it's 8 AI mindsets. I had an interesting story that kind of took me to where I am today. So my first company, we're a managed service provider. We outsourced IT for Mac-based businesses. Did that for 19 years. I still have it, but I just work 1 hour a week in it now, which is amazing. And so 2.5 years ago, I was starting something new, and I was working with a collaboration partner, and he had an opportunity to present at Abundance 360 at the event, and he didn't have the bandwidth to actually sell anything, but I did. So I was like, hey, we're both playing with AI. You sell it, I'll build it and deliver it. So that's how we started. And I got a chance to go to Tony Robbins' house in Florida and work with him one-on-one and teach him how to use AI. I did a leadership training for Peter Diamandis and his leadership team over at Abundance 360. And all those led to some other really cool, fun, projects. One thing came and, created another, and we created a 12-week AI training program called AI Accelerator. And it was really good. I'm proud of the quality, but it was way too much. It was drinking from a fire hose. It was 12 weeks, 1.5 to 2 hour sessions, and just so much packed in there. Ultimately, I walked away from it because there was just some friction with the partner I was working with. And I actually retired from AI in March of last year. And I went out and started building a coaching practice, because that was what I've always wanted to do. And slowly over the year, people just kept calling me and saying, hey, can you help me with this? And what I slowly realized, and stopped taking for granted was that my unique approach to AI was very different from the masses. And I started really seeing what there's a big problem with the kind of AI guru space. Personally, I believe that the majority of AI experts and gurus are over complexifying entertainers. They'll shock and on. Well, they'll wow you with all their cool parlor tricks, but then you go home and you go back to your business and you go, okay, well, what can I actually practically implement and leverage right now? And there's pretty much always nothing, and that was consistent. So is the understanding of that, kind of that going on, and then just the state of overwhelm that a lot of people are still stuck in. They don't know where to get started. It's instantly, gap inducing. Most attempts at trying to bring AI within your business, it's like, where do I start is too much. So there's a big group stuck there. But then the other group, the ones that are using AI, on a daily basis, what I've realized over time is that they are just scratching their surface. And the reason is that they're using AI at a purely tactical level. So they're getting benefits, they're getting results, right? But no one has taught them how to think and approach AI, right? What's been happening? ChatGPT came out, everyone jumped on. How do you work with this thing? And some of the smart engineers who created, all these LLMs said, "Hey, you do prompt engineering." And prompt engineering is great if you're an engineer, right? But if you don't think that way, it's extremely paralyzing. I think prompt engineering is a retardant of flow, right? It's like, okay, I want to do this. And then, oh, I got to get these 7 pieces properly put in. I got to follow the formula. And I've had people tell me, like, oh, it takes me 20 minutes just to get the first prompt going, right? Um, and then outside of prompt engineering, everyone else, all they've been doing is trying to keep up with the Joneses. They're trying to keep up with the features coming out every other week. Is it Grok? Is it Claude? Is it, is it ChatGPT? Is it Gemini? And my answer is it doesn't matter. It's like, it's a car. Does it have 4 wheels, a drivetrain, a steering wheel, brakes? They're all the same thing. They're all just a little bit different, right? Um,
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, it seems to be, again, your overarching message is just, which I think a lot of people are slowly figuring out. But why I was so excited to have you on the show was just for anyone who's still overthinking it, is, just hear from someone else who's working with, hundreds of business leaders, to just approach this more strategically and simply, so that you don't get into this mindset of overthinking, or thinking that you're falling behind, or
Yes, thank you. You asked where the mindsets came along. So while I was doing all the training and the 12-week course and all that and working with people, I started creating. I'm kind of a deep thinker. I like studying mental models and that kind of stuff. And I'm obsessed with leverage. I always have been. So I'm always like, what is the fewest and smallest shift I can make that's going to make the biggest impact? Right. What are my favorite quote in the world? All my kids roll their eyes when they hear me say it, but it's by Wayne Dyer, and it says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so that's really what I'm always after. It's not just AI training, it's really an AI transformation, right? If I can make the fewest shifts, if you learn how to breathe better, everything in your life improves, right? So that's why I'm always after, are those foundational shifts. The tactical approach is the AI newsletters that you sign up for and you get them once a week, and all they do is make you feel more stressed and behind and overwhelmed, right? Here's 74 new AI tools you must be using right now, right? And here's all the new features, and it's impossible. Right. No one, they're curating the curators, but it's still way too much. And so that's why I came back and I was like, man, there's no one out here just breaking this down to the most basic building blocks. And if you learn how to use these basic building blocks, you can build anything you want, right? Everything is super tactical. Here's how, but even then they're missing the mark. They're not teaching it the right way, but we can get into that. So the 8 mindsets were created from, again, that focus. What are the least shifts you need to make? That'll completely change the results and the quality of your interactions. And one thing that was really interesting when we did it the first time around, Steve French, my partner, um, So I created the entire course, and the first time he went through it with me, I didn't think he was going to get much out of it, right? He runs an IT company, or he did. So he's very technical. He loves playing with all this tech stuff. And he got a tremendous amount of value out of the course. So it was really gratifying because I knew the people that were stuck, right? The 80% stuck in overwhelm, not sure how to start. I know it would be, a huge win for them. But I had some doubts about the advanced AI users. Um, I don't know if you know Alex. I'm going to Alex Gertzberg, yeah. So he's an attorney, good friend of mine here in Cleveland. He's got a few other businesses, and he's an advanced AI user, right? He uses it all the time. He was doing a lot of stuff with it. He went through the course, and he's one of our biggest fans right now, because he's like, wow, he got so much out of it. And I think what I realized, again, the advanced users were using all the advanced logical strategies at a high level, but they never got doing the tactical approaches, but not really focusing on the strategy. What are those shifts?
You've worked with multiple fast scaling teams. A lot of the people you're working with are thinking sort of 10x and 100x type stuff. But whatever metrics they use, it's high growth, right? So what separates those that integrate AI effectively from those who get stuck in the noise?
So another thing, in my first 2 years, right, I saw a lot of things that didn't work. I saw a lot of people do things the wrong way. Well, two of the biggest, failures I see are, first, CEOs and leadership teams, delegating AI. Right. They're going to their team. They're saying, hey, we got to start using AI. I want all of you to do something with AI each day. Right. Something like that. It's broad, it's generic, it's not specific. And so you've got, they're running the asylum, right? Who knows what they're doing, right? Um, and they might be getting some wins, right? But the problem is, just because you're getting wins and value and results from AI doesn't mean you're good at using it. And that's a really important distinction. And then this metaphor popped into my mind a little while back. I remember when I was 16, I got my first car. I worked my butt off to save up for it. It was a 1983 528e BMW. And I loved it. It was stick shift. And I thought I was a little race car driver. I thought I passed people. So I thought I was a really good driver and I was fast, right? Fast forward to when I was 19, and I was a part of the BMW Car Club of America. And I went to my first driving event. It was at the stadium at Qualcomm in San Diego, and there was a course laid out with cones. So the first lap around, I drive, and the instructor sits in the passenger seat. I gun it, getting through the gears, tripping the tires, and I'm feeling really good about myself. Then we swap, and he drives. My jaw hit the floor. I could not believe what my car was capable of doing. And I'll never forget that visceral emotional reaction, like, oh my gosh, my car can handle like this. And I was absolutely blown away. And that's what I do for clients, that go through our course. That's the difference between learning how to using it strategically, and truly getting 10x insights, clarity, decision making, right? Versus I'm using AI every day. Right, and it's very easy to confuse the two. Again, I thought I was a great driver. I had a good car, but I had you don't know what you don't know, and that's where people get trapped, and I think, especially with people within the tech space, I think it makes it even harder because it's like, "Oh, well, I'm a tech guy, so I can figure it out, and I know how to use AI." So they develop a lot of false confidence, but they're just barely scratching the surface.
I really like that analogy of the racetrack. I was fortunate enough to have a similar experience with my son a couple of years ago. We went to, actually, it was a BMW drive center in Southern California, where there was like 15 of us in this class, and we were driving their brand new, M BMWs. And the very first thing the instructor said to all of us is, he had a brake from one of the cars in his hand. He said, "Okay, so if anyone can break off the brake pedal in the car today, you can keep the car." And that was like that's one of the many things that stuck with me from that day. It's like, wow, we're here to drive fast. Why would you be telling us how to use the brake? But the whole point was, without being able to brake fast, you have no control over a car as far as making it go as fast as it possibly can, right? In order to go around a corner, you have to brake before you turn, and then you accelerate, right? So it's a really great analogy, I think. And the reason I haven't used it until now is because maybe not many people have had that opportunity to have a advanced driving course. Which side note for the listeners, if you do one of those, you actually get a discount on your insurance for the rest of your life, because you can now do defensive driving really well. So anyway,
There's a good reason. I've been wanting to take. I have an Alpina B7 now, which is amazing. I've been wanting to get that to the track, but I haven't yet.
but I think, again, just sort of to pull through that analogy, there's something about, in situations like this where people are overwhelmed with what technology and now specifically AI can do to really improve their lives, and then I guess more specifically now their businesses. But if you don't actually hit the brake first and understand what it is that what the next curve is that you're trying to take, uh, if you try and do that still going at 100 miles an hour, and you use the example of see people in tech where they're like, oh, well, we've got this, we've been doing tech for the last 20 years, we'll just keep going, and we'll just kind of change the wheels while we're going 100 miles an hour, which of course is not possible. So I think there's definitely something there. I think it's a really great analogy for a lot of leaders that I speak to as well, where it's like, stop, think about what this could do, whether it's on a daily basis, or at least, I think it has to happen on a daily basis, which is why I have this post-it note, which is, how can AI help me do this better? So I'm stopping every day. I'm like, whatever I'm doing, I stop, ask myself the question, and then think about how to move forward, right?
It's so easy not to do that. And so I think that's the first failure point that I see. The second biggest one that I see is not just, abdicating learning AI. So that was the first one. The CEO or COO, they need, another, what society is saying. You've got to master AI, right? That's the buzzword. And it's like, you don't need to master AI, right? If that's the goal, I'm a CEO. I've got enough responsibilities already. How on earth am I going to go out and master AI? So you don't need to master AI, but you need to get in the car and let the instructor drive and see what's possible. Because then you have way more conviction and ability to speak about it and to your team, right? And so it's funny, there's different AI experts kind of popping up, and everyone's got their niche. My focus. There's a lot of things we don't do. We don't do the advanced AI complex applications. That's probably the third big failure point. I see a lot of companies rolling those out, and they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in 6 to 18 months, and then they roll it out and it fails because they don't have the buy-in, right? If their team doesn't understand conceptually and isn't bought into what AI is and what it can do for them, right? They're stuck in fear mode. Is this going to replace my job? Right. So they don't even know how to start. Right. But I'm really focused on the low hanging fruit. I think that's where the biggest instant, productivity gains are possible. Is how can you make, your entire team, just like you're saying, you've got the post note to remind you, how can you make using AI a natural extension of how you're already working? Right. If you have to send an email, you don't like open up and Google and go through your 7 steps. Like, how do I do this? You just open Outlook and click new and send the email without even thinking about it.
Right.
That's the first level of where people need to get to. And just doing that can, unlocks 20 to 40% real world productivity gains in a very short period of time.
So let's maybe dig into that a little bit. So do you have, some sort of systems or filters that you could share that you use to decide whether an AI tool is worth adopting, and how maybe you measure success?
Yeah, when it comes to tools, we actually don't teach any tools. When so our core kind of offering. So we've got the 30-day AI sprint. So that's what we started. That's mainly for CEOs. Now we have a 30-day AI sprint for teams. So and the value there is the multiplier of everyone speaking the same language. Right. Hey, did you do the three experts? Did you try this? Everyone, whether they're super techy and advanced and at a high level with AI, or brand new beginner, now they've got a shared set of terminology they can use, and they can discuss AI in a way they all feel good about, right? Um, I I totally lost my train of thought, and that happens. I got in really late last night, so my brain's just keeping the car analogy going. All 8 cylinders are not firing right now.
Yeah, you were just saying sort of like when I asked about tools and whatever, you said,
Tools,
well,
tools.
you don't
Yeah.
teach tools. Yeah.
In my very first course, we gave dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of tools. It was too much, you know. Dan Sullivan, he says, I'm a one master dog, like what one dog master kind of thing, and he just uses Perplexity. I'm in the same camp, I was spending 500 plus a month just on different tools and trying all these, and I was making 1 millimeter of progress and depth and understanding of these tools. So I think it's much more powerful. Before you jump into the advanced tools, you got to learn your basic arithmetic, so you've got to learn how to really wield and use these LLMs. I work in ChatGPT mostly. um, we have people in Copilot, we have people in Gemini. It doesn't matter. Everything we teach is platform agnostic, and at least in the 30-day sprint, we really don't go into tools at all, because the tools, first you've got to learn the mindsets. You've got to change the way you look at things. You've got to find, you have to, there's a lot of big shifts that need to be made in how you interact with the technology. And a lot of people don't even do these, right? And when you make a few of these things and you start stacking them up, you get one multiplier times another multiplier times another multiplier. And that's where kind of the AI simplifier approach is. It's basic, it's less, right? It's 4 90-minute sessions in 1 month. And at the end, you've got a new superpower capability, right? No matter what role you're in, no matter what you do, you're able to quickly pick these up. So mindsets are the quickest way to make systematic changes in your life, right? And so that's why the tools come last in kind of our approach. It's like, oh well, what's the best thing for this and for that and for this and for that? It doesn't matter. Learn your basics first. Then we can tell you some of the cool ones, right?
That's really interesting, because that's exactly what we talk about a lot, on this show, because so many leaders. I mean, we so as a firm that does CRM implementation, so essentially, so again, our clients see us as their technology partner as far as CRM and integrating other systems is concerned. Again, they're making the same, many cases making the same mistake, where so for us, the sort of the foundation of what we do, which what we call RevOps. So we build your RevOps system on your CRM, right? So and there's 4 components to it. It's people, process, data, and technology. But of those 4, the technology is the easiest one to kind of wrap your head around. It's like, oh, I can subscribe to the technology. It's going to cost me 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever per month. But they don't really understand what the technology will do for their business, which is it going to help them have more clarity around their data, their metrics, OKRs, whatever they call them? Is it going to make their processes run better? And are there people in a place where they can actually make all these things happen before you add the technology, right? So it's very consistent with what we see. So in implementing technology, like business technology, like a CRM, but we're seeing the same thing happen when conversations are starting to happen around AI. Well, it's like, okay, well, do you have the people piece in place? Are your processes good? Can you map them all out manually or on a whiteboard? And are you clear about what the data is that you're trying to drive in your from the highest business level to each department? Then we can implement the technology to make all those things better, more efficient, etc. So it's interesting you say that, and it's again, it's not surprising, but I think it's a good reminder that the technology comes last. So the soft stuff, which is the people stuff, right? Which again, most leaders listening to this will know that the soft stuff is the hard stuff. You have to, if that foundational component is not taken care of, then the technology is really not going to help you. In fact, it might actually do more damage than good.
Yeah, a lot of people have a very hard time using technology, more than you think. And my IT company, we served lawyers exclusively for 11 years. And, they would, instead of CRMs, they have case management software, right? That's their main tool. And I would see clients, I start seeing this pattern. Every 1 or 2 years, they're hopping to a different one, pointing the finger. And it's like, maybe you're pointing at the wrong place. It's because they sign up for their CRM. They see you guys do HubSpot primarily, or a lot of HubSpot, right? Um, and HubSpot has a ton of features and functionality and power, right? And so people are always attracted to the sexiest, really advanced things. And it's like, sorry, we're going to get there in after day 90. The first 90 days, we're going to set up the most basic things and make sure they're dialed in and used properly, right? Because if you don't have that core foundation set up to begin with, none of those advanced features are going to, they're going to fall apart, right? So I definitely align there. Less is more.
Yeah, well, and less is more, but also, yeah, it's just interesting that it's just interesting your background and what you thought you were starting to do when you ended up doing what you're doing now was coaching. But I think what it sounds like what you realize is that when you can take your coaching expertise and ability and really bring that to people trying to figure out AI, it's a really great combination. And that's kind of what we're seeing too, is well, we're having to sort of coach or educate many of our prospects and clients about, no, actually this is not how it's going to work. It's we have to do these other things first before we can start working on the implementation of the technology. We first need to know what are the outcomes that you're looking for, who are the people that are driving each of those outcomes along the sort of the customer journey. Are the processes and the handoffs between each of those people or teams, are those all clear and mapped? Because if they're not, what are we gonna put into the CRM? It's so yeah, it's really interesting to see and not surprising, but again, this adoption of technology is adoption of technology. Right now, AI is of course just far more invasive, or it's a much bigger opportunity even than implementing a CRM. And of course, for many of our clients who are already making the investment in what a CRM can do for them, I think the next thing that they're looking for is, well, how can an AI powered CRM or a CRM plus AI drive their business to even greater success?
And that can't be done well unless there's a clear intention to begin with, right? I mean, they've got AI powered bananas nowadays, right? Everything is AI powered. Everything I saw, I don't know if it wasn't Monday, but a similar tool like that. And essentially, they took their old site and all their feature list, calendars, contacts, CRM, and all they did was stick AI in front of it. AI powered this, and just because you can doesn't mean you should, is a big mantra of mine. So it's not that we shouldn't stick AI into everything, right? But you need that clarity and purpose and why. And just because you can stick AI in 15 places doesn't mean you should attempt to do all 15 at once, right? If you could only do one, which would it be? There's actually there was a course I created years ago called the Optimize Method. And the idea is that at any time, most of your employees are using, I think it was 13 different apps in one day. It was a stat I heard on a podcast recently, but 10 to 20, 10, 20, 50 different apps is pretty normal. Each single app has at least 10 to 50, maybe 100 features quite often. So at your fingertips, you've got 500 to 1,000 different potential features you could be leveraging any day. And
Hmm.
so the core idea behind that course was it created a system and methodology to help you identify, okay, we want to roll out HubSpot. What are the 3 most impactful features you can run out? Don't give me 5. Don't give me the top 10. Don't give me all this stuff. Like, what are the 3 that if you nail these, they'll make the biggest impact, right? So again, that focus of always going for less is more, prioritizing, and I'm sure you run into that as well. And you have to walk your clients back. It's like, hey, I know you want to get there, which is great. We'll get there. But if we try to do that right now, it's a disservice to you and it's going to fail,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So let's
Absolutely.
start with these building blocks.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Tom, I want to sort of put you in the way back machine. So forget about what's happened in the last 2 years and go to your sort of your pre AI world, because I mean you were involved in successful businesses even before AI. So thinking back to some of your previous roles, what were the key elements to you that separated teams that scaled more efficiently than ones that didn't?
One is just a plug for EOS. Our company runs on EOS. Minneapolis is like the heart of where it all started, right? Um, so that was we had 1 year where we grew 60% in the second half of the year, or 60% that year. Awesome, amazing, we're all celebrating. And then the first quarter of the next year we lost 40% because we didn't have the systems, the people, the processes in place, right? So the ship was sinking, and we tried to self-implement. We were worse off at the end of our first day than we were at the beginning. So like, okay, this is what the credit line's for. And we invested in working with an implementer, and that
Hmm.
slowly turned the company around. And that got it. So you ask about the teams. I think one of the most impactful things I've ever done is really raise the bar for what you get, what you tolerate. And I have a little slightly different approach. I believe that B players actually cause far more harm to your company and growth than your C players. And and this made a huge impact for me, because C players are obvious. They're C players. You see them and you get rid of them, hopefully, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people tolerate C players for a long time, even. But the B players, they're not doing C player work. They're not doing horrible work. They're not pissing off clients, pretty rarely if they do, but they're not doing great work either. They're not creating raving fan clients. They're not in the business of delivering great experiences, whether it's to their own team members or to potential clients or active clients. And so when I decided to raise the bar and say, moving forward, we're going to have an A player team only, and really championing that message and sticking to it. And when you decide to raise the bar and expect more of yourself and expect the best out of your team, that was the biggest shift we created. That's when we really got into the self-managing company territory.
Hmm.
Because when you have A players, I always think of the blind baton handoff, right? You're on the track team, which I know I was never in track, but I did it for PE, right? And you hand it back, and you trust the person behind you so much, you hand it off, and you don't even glance back. You know it's getting taken to the end zone, right? Or when Michael Jordan shoots a shot and turns around before it hits a basket, because you have complete certainty. And so when you raise the bar and you say, I am no longer going to tolerate B players, especially C and D's, get them out right away, because they are killing your company. They're killing your energy, your culture. They're zapping the soul out of your best employees, and they're talking about it. They're going, man, why is Josh still on the team? Can't Brendon see that he's a insert word? Um, and so when you raise that bar, and for the B players, again, it's championing that message and saying, hey, you got to move up to an A player. This is what it looks like. Right now, you're a B. You're either moving up or you're moving out, and it's not a bad thing. It's just, think about championship teams, and I love the sports analogies because they're so easy to understand. But you want to win a Super Bowl, you're not going to do it with a bunch of B players on the team. Everyone's got to commit to that higher level. And when you do that, you retain better talent. You get more out of your team. They're grateful because finally we're bringing in the right caliber of people that can play with where I am. And so it gets that flywheel going of attracting A player talent, retaining A player talent. A players know other A players, and they bring them into your company, further reducing your cost of hiring and all that stuff. I'd say that was a big one.
Essentially confirms what I was saying earlier about like the how we think about the four components, people, process, data, and technology. Your whole answer now was really in the people component, and then I guess EOS would potentially bring in the process, like have processes or frameworks or operating systems that make managing people and communication and clarity. And then of course data is your scorecards, and all the things that where people can actually measure that they're how they're doing. And I know EOS of course is a great example. We use it too, and to your point, I would say probably 3/4 or more of our clients also run on EOS. which again makes it so much easier for us to support them because we're speaking the same language. We can plan 90 days at a time. Once they've done their quarterly, we go and say, okay, so how can we support your rocks for the next quarter? It just makes everything so much easier. But the tech, and again, this is part of what we have to then, the conversation we have to have with clients who want to have better systems from a technology perspective. It's like, okay, but are those systems working before you add the technology? Because if they're not, we need to fix that first. So we're doing a lot of process consulting, which we have to do. We have to get clarity on the data that they're trying to drive, and then we know how to map that all to the technology piece. Um, what I mean, and then so going back to your sort of previous self, sort of BC, before ChatGPT. Um, so describe some of the challenges from a data and technology perspective, that you've seen when it comes to aligning those people. So you talked about A players, but ultimately, if you have A players, then you're set to scale, right? So what are some of the challenges that you saw, and how did you know when things were going right, from a scaling perspective?
It's funny. I mean, to be honest, my IT company, we never scaled a ton. We never grew that much. It was, I kind of laugh. It's, right now, what we're experiencing this year is the 19-year overnight success.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I mean, we worked hard. We had a lot of ups and downs, but the core was the people. Like we had the hardest time getting a consistent, high quality help desk. Help desk and projects was always a hurdle. So we had the sales, but then they didn't have the confidence in being able to deliver, the projects. And then when we, for us, that was the single biggest shift. When we raised the bar, we got the A players, because now we've got an A player will do twice the work of a B player as a normal thing, right? It's not they're 10, 20% better than an A player, than a B player. An A player significantly. And most importantly, they have batteries included, right? So if you have the processes and the systems and everything in place, the A players will not only use and follow those, but they'll improve them as well. So there's so many different things that having that right core of people, having the culture, having the values. I would fire $100,000 a year clients on, without giving any second thought. I never would tolerate toxic clients, people that would not respect or talk down to my employees, because, um, our team is everything, right? If you have a client and they go and everyone cringes when that person calls, let that client go, because it's costing the team morale. Impact that it's having is impacting your entire team, and it's affecting your other clients beyond that. Um, so yeah, I don't think I have a good answer. I can't go out and say, oh, we scaled like crazy and it was because of this. Now, with this business now, with AI Simplifier that we launched in January, we are scaling like crazy. We're going to break 1 million our first year, going from a standstill in January. And it's amazing. And it's really, for me, it's a lot. I did a lot of work, a lot of the inner work, the deep work, the unique ability, really clarifying, like, who am I? What should I be doing? What should I not be doing? Right. I mean, that's what it took me 19 years to learn in my first company, go reading Rocket Fuel and having that aha moment where I'm like, oh my God, this is why I gave myself shingles when I was 32 years old, because I was stressed and thinking I had to do all the shit that comes with running a business, even the stuff I hate doing and I'm horrible and I despise and I delay as long as I humanly can, right? And then when I read Rocket Fuel and I had that light bulb moment, I said, oh, this explains so much. So, we broke up the roles and I got to start doing more of what I love and less of what I don't. And so it was that, continual pivot. And then I eventually got to, the big success for me, Brendon, was less scaling and more freedom. So I was able to get in my IT company about three years ago, a little over, to where I was working 1 day a week in that company. And then the rest of the business was really running itself and doing well. So that let me start reinventing myself. Because what I went through in probably my second or third year in strategic coach, which I've been in for 8 years now, 8 or 9, uh, when I did my first thing of unique ability, and I was like, what on earth am I doing running an IT company? I'm just not passionate. I'm not excited about this. I was, but I'm not anymore. And so I wasn't in a place to, escape, if you will, or sell the company because we weren't profitable and that kind of stuff. Um, but I did start getting clear on, okay, who do I want to be a hero to? Who do I love to serve? Who would want to, who do I want to see? Who could I see myself, sorry, speaking is difficult at times, spending 25 years supporting, you know? And for me, it was really those, high performing visionary entrepreneurs like we have with us in strategic coaching, 10X and Free Zone, and those types of kind of mastermind groups, if you will. Um, and so I slowly but intentionally kind of laid down the bricks so I could find my way out, and then that, I went through a few years of reinventing a couple failed launches and hard and expensive lessons. I started a cybersecurity company. Turned out I had a business partner I thought I knew who ended up being a Machiavellian con man and totally screwed me over. And that business imploded and it hurt financially and emotionally, the betrayal and all that stuff. So, but as I went through that, I saw all of my peers going through the same thing. You have your first business, your first success, and then you kind of figure out what you want to go to. And once you succeed, you start attracting more opportunities. And that's where we get into trouble because with the logical mind steps in. This makes sense. I can make money doing this. I was successful doing this, so I can do it doing that. But you forget to check in with the heart and with the alignment. And that's something that I got really clear on. Then 6, 18 months, so many entrepreneurs later after making a decision, they're like, what the heck was I thinking? And they're bleeding money and they've got legal bills and stress. So I think getting that alignment and really finding out what you love doing and what you do best is so crucial. I think that work for me is the biggest thing that got me to where I am today and scaling and the future outlook we have.
Right, right. Yeah. No. I mean, I think every, entrepreneur listening can, obviously uh tell similar stories. And I think, but one of the greatest things though, and many business leaders, of course, if they've lived through those things themselves, or they've seen, a visionary entrepreneur go through those ups and downs, can relate as well. But what we do know is that, um, after every low comes one of the biggest, times of growth, right? I mean, that is like as predictable as, the sun came up this morning. Your biggest periods of growth, assuming you can take all the learnings from that experience, and then, you've improved and increased your capabilities to do more and better the next time. And it's less likely that you'll make the same mistake again.
As long as you're in the right headspace, right? I mean, this is, Ryan Holiday, I'm a huge fan of his work. The obstacle is the way, right? And but the same year we went through that with a business partner, we had some really, really horrible things we went through with the family, so it was kind of the double whammy. And you quickly have to decide, is this happening for me or is this happening to me? Because there's people who go through those lessons and those hard times, but they stay in the victim mindset. They're too busy saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and "This is unfair," instead of like, "Okay, this sucks." But I actually got really good at. They talk about transcending suffering, and I believe that all suffering is a result of not accepting what is. And so the sooner you can shift from, is this happening to me or for me? It changes everything. Because when you realize even the worst, we all have tragedies. We all have horrible things we have to go through, things that aren't fair, things that, are horrible, whatever. We each have our own path, and for me, the past 2 years were extremely difficult, horrible, horrible things. But the only way I also grew more spiritually than I have my entire life during this time, because I chose to, and I kind of, and entered the pain, if you will, and did some of the work and got the clarity. But I think mindset is everything. And that's what you and I are fortunate to be in Strategic Coach, just an amazing organization that really, it really pivots and changes and molds your mindset. And so now I'm at the point, it's like, I when something horrible happens, it's not that I'm celebrating saying, "Yay, this is great." But the mindset is, if I know that at some point in the future, I'm going to be able to look back at it and be grateful, because that always happens if you look for it, right? It's like, wow. If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here, right? These ripple effects I wouldn't be where I am now. So if I know I'm going to be at that point at some point in the future, why not just bypass the time and say, okay, I'm not happy about this, but I'm going to be grateful for it because I know at some point I'm going to look back upon this moment with gratitude.
I mean, again, first of all, I mean, you're obviously totally right, and I'm sure a lot of people listening can absolutely you know feel similar. Like you say, everyone's been on their own journey. Um, but as we wrap up and sort of bringing things back to how do we help leadership teams of in business, um, so I guess one of the commonalities between adopting a CRM technology and then allowing it to grow and into the future and keep optimizing your business. The AI is a very similar parallel, and it's also potentially exponential because it's going to impact every part of the business and every part of every person working in the business. What do you have any advice, just in closing, to the folks listening, as far as how would you think about adoption of AI right now?
The biggest untapped resource, and kind of again, it's that low hanging fruit. Like the single biggest goal for every company should be, how can I make AI a natural extension of how everyone in my business works? We're going to look back. I mean, now you couldn't imagine not having one of these things. Your iPhone or we have so much power at our fingertips. I mean, when it was first released, we couldn't have dreamed of what it's able to do today, right? And AI is the same way, but just because someone's using AI doesn't mean they're good at using AI. I think is a really big thing. If they're not formally given, a way to use it, they're not going to. So again, you've got two groups. You've got the group that's stuck, uncertain, feared, overwhelmed. Then you've got the group that's using AI. The problem with this group using AI is they know they're ahead, and so they get a lot of false confidence there, right? I had one guy who runs a 145 person team of AI software developers. Okay. He went through the program, and what he shared with me a couple of weeks later that just stuck with me. In the beginning, he said, "Tom, I realized that just because we know how to build cars doesn't mean we know how to drive them." And so making that distinction, is crucial. And so for the leadership teams, I think it's, how can everyone on the leadership team get that experience of being in the passenger seat
Uh,
with an instructor driving the car? Until you truly have that, like I have, wow, oh my God, look at what we just did moments on a daily basis. And I do this stuff all the time. I haven't like gotten desensitized to not realize the amount of, the quantity. But what's the most impressive, we're literally compressing time while also increasing quality when it's done right. But the problem is, 99% of people using AI right now do not know how to do it the right way. That might sound harsh, but if you doubt me, go on LinkedIn and read 5 posts. You'll tell you know instantly which ones are written by AI. And the second you see one that's written by AI, your mind subconsciously says inauthentic. And so that's chipping away at your individual, brand, your company's brand. If you've got employees and it's like, well, I told them to start using AI. So, one day you randomly see an email from a client who he forwarded to you, and it's like, oh, it's going to be a game-changing deep dive, and it's not about this, it's about that, and it's sprinkled full of emojis, and you're like, what the heck is this? I would have never sent this out. This is what's happening on a regular basis when you've got a team using AI that doesn't know the right way to use it. Because when you're trained to use it the right way, this is actually the what we cover in week 1. Um, the output from ChatGPT can and should sound exactly like you, but very few people have learned the right way to do that. Cloning their voice, squishing out the AI sounding, gobbledygook that you see everywhere. And so there's I think leadership teams need to learn how to do this to protect their quality, and to really empower their teams. Again, it has to start from the top down. The CEO is not exempt from learning how to use AI, and I've seen that way too many times in companies. We actually will not let anyone sign up into our teams program until their CEO has signed up for the course. Either they're going through, or they finished it, or going through concurrently. We believe in it that strongly. I think it's absolutely crucial.
And is there, so I mean, other than folks checking out AI Simplifier and signing up, I mean, what else could those teams do today to sort of maybe take a slower track to getting there? Um, if in other words, what are the simple things that they could start doing today to start using AI properly?
In between, instead of signing up for the program, on LinkedIn, I've got the AI Simplifier newsletter. That one's growing really quickly. So I give a lot of really good practical, tips and that kind of stuff. So they could learn a lot of kind of the lessons, mindsets, ideas, through there. Could get some good value. But the biggest thing I tell people is to play. Put time on your calendar. Like, if I want to work out and build muscle, guess what I got to do? I've got to work out, right? Even if I'm not good at it. It's that whole James Clear. He's like, put your shoes by your bed and have your outfit be ready to go. Kind of make it easy. So put a recurring time block for 1 hour a week just to play with AI. And I would recommend to stick with one tool
Mm.
and spend that hour with the same tool, week after week, as opposed to just poking around and spending 10 minutes with Gamma because it's cool, or that one. Like the specific tactical AI solutions are cool. They have their place. They deliver their value, but that's not where your massive wins are going to come. They're going to come from using it naturally every day. Get the ChatGPT app installed on your phone. Download the native app on your computer so it's quick and easy to use.
There you have it from Tom Lambotte. Do make AI part of your atomic habits to become better and better at it. Tom, thank you so much for joining me today. I enjoyed the conversation, and of course, I look forward to chatting again soon.
Likewise, thank you for having me.